So retrofitting AI into highly inefficient systems will just make us very efficient at being inefficient. How do we make sure that everyone in the ecosystem uses this intelligence revolution, this opportunity to take a step back and reimagine how health could be, and then use the power of technology to get us there, from research and development throughout the diagnostics, the treatment, the follow-up, and also the idea of prevention as core to all of our systems. I think that's the greatest opportunity. I think governments are still not grasping it, but that's why we as a community, including innovators, should be pushing in that direction.
Welcome back to the S&S Podcast, special edition from Web Summit, Vancouver. Your host, Vijesh Vijayan.
Thank you, Dr. Ricardo Leite, for joining us. Thank you for having the time to talk about AI and responsible AI at Web Summit.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here in beautiful Vancouver, and great to meet you.
Thank you so much. Let's discuss first about targeted molecular design and what you were just talking about at the Vancouver Web Summit stage.
Yeah, I mean, we were challenged to discuss how artificial intelligence is truly transforming the whole concept from development and discovery of new molecules for pharmaceutical products, for vaccines, and how AI can be a potential accelerator. And the truth is, it's already highly influencing the different stages of drug discovery. And as you know, traditionally, to discover a new molecule that would go from conceptualization to market, traditionally would take you 10 years, right? And many of those molecules would end up failing throughout the process. With AI, since you can accelerate this process, you can discover new molecules also in a way that you maybe not even discover through your traditional methods. You will be able to accelerate, but also to fail more. But failing more is actually a good thing, because it means you're going through a lot of options faster. And why is this important is, first of all, it'll allow us to discover treatments for diseases that are yet to be treated, and so unmet needs in healthcare. It's incredibly important to hopefully lower costs down the road instead of augment them, and this is a major challenge for health systems. And so if we can lower the whole cost structure around drug discovery, that could be a game changer, I would say. And also on the testing side, the clinical trials side, being able to do clinical trials much more faster, using digital twins, using AI for patient recruitment, for data analysis, for even after the clinical trials in terms of regulatory submission, regulatory review on the sides of the regulator. So you see throughout the whole cascade, the whole value chain that is involved in discovering a new molecule, transforming it into a pharmaceutical product, putting it into market, AI can play an accelerating role. An angle that I'm particularly interested in is how do we align incentives then to also lead pharmaceutical companies and those working in the biotech space to focus on developing new ideas with the power of AI towards prevention and not just treating diseases. And I think we're right at the beginning of this revolution. There's still a lot to do, but the excitement was palpable in the room.
Amazing, and I think you're in the right place, because this is the hub of biotech research and a lot of research happening in that space. And to be able to influence that, Vancouver is the place we are looking up to. So this brings me to the point of what you have been very vocal about, health systems versus disease systems. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, the truth is, if you look at the data objectively, what we, and especially in the richer countries of the world, called health systems, they are in reality disease systems. In other words, they are systems built to react to when people get sick. They are disease reactive. This is a problem because what we're seeing consistently is that we're spending more and more money on health. Just yesterday here at the Web Summit in Vancouver, the Minister of Finance of British Columbia said that she spends over 40% of her budget just on healthcare. This is not sustainable. And one would expect you're spending so much money, $3 trillion US dollars annually globally. You would expect a decline in the burden of disease. But actually we're seeing people get sicker. Of course, there are demographics at play, longevity at play, but it means that it's not sustainable. In other words, we will not, at this pace, we will not be able to ensure health for all. And so people who have money in their pocket or have insurance will end up having access to some form of care. But then those that already are poor or are in a more economically disadvantaged situation or in a more vulnerable position are the ones that are consistently going to be left behind. And so this creates a vicious cycle of more poverty and inequities. And we know that poverty is the main driver of disease. And so breaking that vicious cycle of creating more disease and more poverty and more inequities, we can actually use the power of AI and this intelligence revolution to think, okay, if this is a problem, how can we redesign health systems altogether? And if we have a clear vision on how to do that, well, then AI can be the driver that takes us there.
Yeah, I think we are at that inflection point where AI is ready to take on such challenges, and the industry is also looking up to technologies such as AI to help break the vicious cycle, like you say, and build a virtuous cycle for the benefit of humanity. But there comes the question, which again, something that you have been talking about, across different stages, especially as the CEO of HealthAI, talking about responsible AI. And I think we are at the right time to start, or are we late to think about responsible AI?
You're never late to think about responsible AI. And when it comes to healthcare, it's the only way to go. And I have to say this bluntly.
Yes.
Innovation in health will move at the speed of trust, right? And if you do not fix your governance, if you do not put in the right mechanisms that will lead to trust, which we've broadly defined as responsible AI processes and governance, if you do not build your governance focused on these principles of responsible AI, the health system will not trust the technology, the healthcare professionals will not trust the technology, citizens, the beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries who are the citizens of this world will not trust the technology. And so you'll end up with potentially amazing technology that can produce amazing outcomes, but that is not adopted and not diffusing within the system. Actually, today, you see a lot of pilots in the health system, but you don't really see systemic transformation yet. You don't see that scaling towards changing the way we do healthcare. And so I would argue that everybody needs to kind of wake up and smell the coffee and understand that if you want these amazing technologies to be successful, if you want to go beyond the piloting stage that we're in right now in AI, especially when it comes to health, you need to build the trust of the people. And the only way to build trust of the different stakeholders is by solving the governance issues. We're a nonprofit based out of Geneva, and as a global agency for responsible AI in health, we deal with health systems around the world. We deal with governments, and almost every survey we've seen consistently shows that the main bottleneck for AI adoption are the healthcare professionals themselves. And when you ask the healthcare professionals, why do you feel this resistance to adopt? It's multifold, certainly, but I would highlight two aspects. One is the fact that physicians many times do not understand how the technology works or how it produces certain recommendations or results. And that for a scientific mind is very challenging because we are trained to understand process and to understand causality. And so without that understanding, just accepting blindly a truth from a black box is a challenge. The second thing is liability, which we need to solve. who is responsible if something goes wrong? And we're dealing with humans here, right? If something goes wrong with a machine, people will not forgive, right? And so you need to have mechanisms in place so people feel, okay, I can trust this, and if something does go wrong, I know that there was a mitigation process in place. It's the same thing if you think about autonomous cars, right? If there's an accident with an autonomous car, people blame, the machine, and there's an outrage, even though we know that autonomous cars are many times safer than us humans driving behind the wheel. But we cannot ignore the fact that we're part of a human society, and that humans have this relationship with machines, and so we have to build the trust in a way that is not only possible but also realistic with the context we're dealing with.
I hope in the context of building trust, stages like Web Summit is bringing together the right stakeholders to do that. And what are you seeing at Web Summit? You have been across different stages in Web Summit across the world, and what are you seeing in 2026 with all these stages in bringing together trust or building trust in this space?
Well, what I think is very important is how innovators and government and media and civil society kind of coalesce in the Web Summit in context and environment. That's incredibly powerful. Here in British Columbia and Vancouver, you also see a lot of intent from the government to make British Columbia a leader for innovation, and so that kind of governmental leadership is also quite inspiring, I would say. And in terms of what is 2026 bringing us in terms of topics, I would highlight two things that I heard here that struck me. One is clearly the rise of the concept of agentic AI becoming highly dominant. I fear there's a lot of hype still around it. From a governance perspective, certainly we are not close to addressing the many challenges that autonomous agents will represent. And I always think of this from a health perspective, as you can imagine. And so, but it's exciting to see, all the investment and discussions around the potential of agentic AI. I'm a strong believer that's part of the future. And the other thing that really stuck with me was actually something that the CIO of IBM mentioned on stage when asked, what are we going to be discussing 5 years from now? Mm-hmm. And his answer was, among other things, the challenges, particularly for cybersecurity around quantum computing, and how we might still be struggling to deal with all of these innovations in the context of legacy systems that we have in place. And so I think that that's a very sobering response that he gave, and it very much reflects the reality we're living in. You have a lot of innovation, you have a lot of excitement, but at the same time, you have to be grounded in reality, fixing the foundations, fixing the governance, fixing the infrastructure, fixing the capacity building necessary among the different stakeholders, from general population to the different leadership levels within organizations. And to do this all at the same time as you're delivering on whatever your mission is as an organization. So exciting, demanding, but we're not going to change the world with changing the world is not an easy task, and so that's what we're here to do. And I think technology can be an important driver to get there, as long as we know where we want to go, and that the intentionality around equity and fairness is put front and center when we try to deliver results.
Amazing. I think we have to be responsible in creating responsible AI, and I think every stakeholder in this in this mission has a large role to play, especially the government. A lot of recent announcements came in the last 2 days, and I think we are in the right direction, if you would agree on that.
I believe so, and I feel a lot of appetite actually around this topic. Speaking with technologists and academic leaders here in BC, we've been feeling a lot of interest also in our work at HealthAI. They're hoping that Canada will play a more active role in our global network of regulators. And actually, I'm going from here to Ottawa to meet with several governmental entities and officials. And so I believe that the environment is prone for innovation. HealthAI actually has a community of practice that brings together institutions from government to academia to innovators to civil society. Everyone is invited to apply to join our community, where we discuss these issues of governance of AI for health. Because at the end of the day, all of this positivity and bringing the right people together, it's not going to happen just in a bubble. It's truly a global effort. The way the technology is being developed and scaled is something as we've never seen before. And in this hyper-connected world, we need to also figure out how we're going to solve the challenges that comes with the technology together. And that's where creating these kind of communities of practice like we do, focusing on the governance of AI for health, I think are incredibly powerful. And I feel that a lot of Canadian and North American partners are going to be joining our community following our presence here at the Web Summit. So that's a positive externality, hopefully taking a lot of the Canadian positivity into a global stage.
Absolutely. I think we are all together on this cause and to fuel your mission, and we are all in it together. Thank you so much, Dr. Ricardo. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.